What time we are? We are 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
I think we're ready, are we? I'll call this meeting to order. My name's Eric Burns. I'm the attorney. I'm calling it to order for two purposes. One is to call the roll, and the second is to conduct election for president. First, the roll. Steve Clevenger.
Present.
Gary Schroeder.
Present.
Tim Vanderplatz. Robert Novak.
Present.
Rabita Rajkanakar.
Present.
Ed Butz.
Present.
Quorum present. And the first item of business, first and only that I will conduct, is I would like to open nominations for president of the BZA for the year 2024. Are there any nominations for president?
I move to nominate Steve Clevenger for president, please.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Are there any other nominations for president? Hearing none, I would ask for a voice vote. All those in favor? Steve
Aye.
Clevenger, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 6-0. The meeting is yours.
Thank you. Now I'd like to request nominations for office for vice president.
I move to nominate Robert Novak for vice president.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other nominations for vice president?
I move that nominations for vice president be closed.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The nominations for vice president have been closed.
I move to cast a unanimous ballot for Robert Novak for vice president.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. I will now request nominations for the office of secretary.
I move that Eric Burns be nominated for secretary.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
I
Any
move-
more?
I move that,
Okay.
go ahead. I move that nominations for secretary be closed.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor of nominating Eric Burns as the secretary, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I move to cast a unanimous ballot for Eric Burns for secretary.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Robert, on vice president and Eric as secretary.
And to you.
Thank you. And we will continue with our meeting. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes for the December 6th, 2023 ABZA public hearing as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, that's me. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes are approved as submitted. New business.
Apart from the withdrawal and continuances, all cases are ready to go except BZA 2130, or I'm sorry, BZA 2137, James and Joanne Lane. We have some paperwork that still needs to come in. So if there's anyone here for that case, please come on up. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take the public hearing motion, please.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, the application and all documents filed herewithin, the staff report and recommendations of the applicants to be heard this evening, and responses from the checkpoint agencies.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I will go ahead and take the continuances, please.
I move to continue BZA 2141 Stein Barn LLC and BZA 2142 Stein Barn LLC to the February 28, 2024 Area Board of Zoning Appeals public hearing at the petitioner's request, and BZA 2126 Clinton M. Cordy to the March 27, 2024 public hearing at petitioner's request.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. If you are here for one of those three cases, it's BZA 2126, Clinton M. Cordy, that will be heard on March 27th. If you are here for BZA 2141, Stein Barn LLC, and that's also 2142, is Stein Barn LLC, those will be heard next month on February 28th. Also, if you're here for BZA 2139, Chris A. Tabor and Shane Albrechts, that case has been withdrawn and will not be heard. I'd like to briefly discuss our procedures for this evening. Each case will be heard following a motion and a second from the board. We'll ask the staff to report on its findings. Following the staff report, we will ask the petitioner to present his or her case, after which anyone wishing to support the petitioner's request for a variance or special exception will be asked to come forward. After hearing from the petitioner and those speaking on his or her behalf, we will ask those speaking against the petition to present their arguments. The petitioner will then be allowed to rebut arguments raised by those in opposition to his or her petition. Following the rebuttal, the board may wish to ask questions of the petitioner, supporters, and opponents of the petition, or of the staff. The staff will have the opportunity at this time to make any necessary clarifying comments. We will then vote by use of a prescribed ballot. 4 votes are necessary to make any decision. In the absence of 4 votes, either for or against, the petition is automatically continued to the next meeting. There are 6 members present tonight. Please observe the following guidelines for the sake and time and fairness to all. State your name and address for the record before you speak. We do have a sign-in sheet at the staff desk that after you speak, we ask that you sign in if you are not the petitioner. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes or less. Do not repeat arguments that have been brought up by others. Remember that all visual aids used to support your arguments will remain the property of the board. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. Please step out of the room before using your cell phone. With that in mind, we'll hear our first case.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2133 Shai Cantor. Petitioner and owners requesting a special exception to allow a transient guest house operating 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, for a maximum of 6 guests in an R1 zone. The property is located at 2215 Carlisle Road in West Lafayette, Wabash 07, Southwest 23-4, with conditions and commitments continued from the December 6th ABZA hearing by petitioner.
And do I have a second?
Second.
And we'll hear from staff. Ryan, please.
Okay. All right, we are in West Lafayette. This is 2215 Carlisle Road. As you can see from the zoning map, pretty standard. This is an older subdivision, zoned R1, planned development residential. The Camelback project is immediately to the west. A close-up of the site. There's currently I'll leave it on the photo here for a second. It's a ranch-style house with a 1-car attached garage and a driveway, roughly the width of for the single car. There's no public sidewalks here. This is an older subdivision in the city. The house itself has 3 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms. According to the petition, the single-car garage will not be used for the guests, and it states that there is room for 4 parked cars, essentially 2 back-to-back in the driveway and 2 in front of the house at the curb. That would be within the right-of-way. As you can see, there's on-street parking available from the photo there, so it's already happening. Here's the site plan. Of course, public utilities are available to the site. Nothing overly remarkable about the petition. It does meet all of the tests, as we indicate in our staff report, so I won't go through them, but I'm happy to answer any questions about them. So we are recommending approval with the condition and commitments. The condition is the standard requirement to obtain a permit from the city, and then the commitment, occupancy limitation to 6 guests with no more than 3 unrelated at any given time, and the dwelling may only be reserved for a single booking at any given time. And then the petitioner has also proposed commitments, which they can explain, but they're listed in the report: no parties, pets, people visiting on the site past 9 p.m. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner, his or her representative.
Hello. First of all, I have to say, this is nerve-wracking, standing in front of everybody. I am the owner's mother. She is a single woman. She's a speech therapist that moved to New York to basically advance her learnings in head and neck cancer and voice disorders, which in Montefiore, she had bigger opportunities to learn for that. Her future is unknown. She doesn't know if she will be able to afford to stay in New York or if she will be like it at all. So that is the reason why we want to Airbnb it and not rent it. Because first of all, when she comes to visit family, she has 2 dogs, so she will need some place to stay. Money is tight because she is a single woman, and she really doesn't know if she will stay there or come back to her own house. So that's the only asset she has, and she wants to maintain it, because if she ever has kids, she wants grandma to help. The house is small. It's really, none of the neighbors are people that have little kids. It's either rentals or older residents or single people in most of the neighborhood, because again, the houses are small. And the purpose of asking for an Airbnb is, again, so that when she comes to town, she has a place to stay with her 2 dogs. And also because she doesn't know like time limit of how long she'll be staying there. And we also thought that the house would be better maintained, as we will be really screening the people that will stay there, as all her furniture is there, and that's the only furniture that she has, and that's the only place that she can call home. So that's a reason why she doesn't want to rent it. She wants to Airbnb it, and that way she'll have more control when she can come back home and who will be there, and it will be for short times. So that's the reason. And of course, with her job, she cannot continue to pay rent in New York and pay her mortgage. So the purpose of this step is not really to make money out of it, but to really cover the expenses so that she can maintain her home.
Yeah. Can you go ahead and give your name
Nurit Harash
and your
Cantor.
address for the record?
Yeah, it's Nurit Harash Cantor, and I live in 204 Still Drive, West Lafayette, Indiana. So I'm very aware of our need for like zoning and not zoning and the schools and being a smaller community. So I'm at West Lafayette, and the kids grew up in West Lafayette schools, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
We may have some for you later.
Okay.
Anyone wishing to support the petition? Anyone wishing to oppose the petition?
What are we doing? Opposing?
Yes.
This is useless, you can't hear a thing. I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe it was the grocery list. Unfortunately, since you can't hear very well, and that wasn't working, I have no idea what she said other than the fact that she's for it. And I am Cheryl Kirkpatrick. I live at 801 Carrollton Road in West Lafayette, Indiana, and every time I've come here, I have stood up and talked against these rental properties, especially that are going to turn into Airbnbs. And I have tried to get the point across. The answer is no, no, and no. We have stopped them in a few places around West Lafayette. We are a residential area. We want to stay that way. We do not want to have transient people coming in and out all the time. We would like to have neighbors that we know. We cannot figure out that there's any reason for this other than to make money. There's no other logical reason. If you need money, sell the house. Get out of there. Go someplace else. Why do you have to wreck the neighborhood? This is what I'd like to know. We've already said no to how many people? Incidentally, for your personal information, Barbie on Elmwood is gone. She sold the house after owning it for 2 months to a single family with a 5-year-old and made $25,000.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Yes, please come on up.
Stacy Jones, 2207 Carlisle Road, West Lafayette, Indiana. Good evening, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the board. Our neighborhood, as you know, is zoned R1 for single-family homes, and this special exception for a 24/7 Airbnb would amount to a business in a strictly residential area. My understanding is that this proposal would not fall under the category of owner on site, and therefore sounds more like a motel than a residence. At the December meeting, I heard many eloquent requests for special exceptions where the owners demonstrated and promised safeguards regarding guest rules and compliance. I could tell they were sincere. However, the exception, if approved, applies to the property rather than to the owner who requested it. There don't appear to be any safeguards in place for when the property is sold. According to the Airbnb booking site, there are 309 Airbnbs already in West Lafayette and another 82 vacation rental by owner locations, according to the VRBO site. That encroachment is sobering, and with our proximity to Mackey Arena and Ross-Ade Stadium, I feel this would set a bad precedent. I know special exceptions can entail things like setbacks and issues like ingress and egress, but this particular special exception would fundamentally change the character of our neighborhood of single-family homes and would make the R1 zoning meaningless. I respectfully ask the board to deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you. In opposition?
Hello, my name is Jennifer Van Skyver. I'm the Director of Development for the City of West Lafayette. What I have for you here tonight is a signed letter by Mayor Erin Easter. It's the same letter that was written by both her and John last year. I believe both her and my colleague Chad Spitznagel has read this into the minutes. I'm happy to do so for you guys tonight, or submit it as is and give you guys a brief update. Is there a preference?
You can go ahead and read it if you
Okay.
like.
Members of the BZA, the growth we've experienced in the city of West Lafayette is incredible and an indication of many exciting new investments in the community. One of our key functions as local government is to ensure community welfare and prepare for growth, including housing growth. The recent Ready Lafayette Housing Report anticipates that Tippecanoe County will need an additional 11,079 housing units by 2030, placing 25 to 30% of that housing growth in West Lafayette. Today, only 30% of our total housing is owner-occupied, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. As a growing college community, we consistently experience challenges with affordability and access to housing. From student population increases to new economic development announcements, housing is a constant concern. The city of West Lafayette has invested in bringing more job opportunities that have a relationship with the research and expertise of Purdue University. We are highly concerned about the potential negative impacts of the lack of housing availability on the success of these high-paying investments in our community. Housing and schools are a key factor for many faculty and staff in deciding where to locate their families and whether to come to Purdue University in West Lafayette at all. We are currently studying West Lafayette's housing needs to complement the Ready Greater Lafayette Housing Study. We expect to complete the study in the first quarter of 2024. What we do know is that the easiest way to ensure that we have available and affordable housing is to utilize our existing housing stock for resident housing. This is true for student residents and full-time residents. While we are not inherently opposed to transient guest housing, we do wonder at what point we cease to have citizens living in our community. At what level of housing loss do our schools suffer from not having students to serve? What is a neighborhood when you are the only owner-occupied house on the block? When do we become negligent in protecting the welfare of our community? We question the prudence of allowing special exceptions in single-family homes when we have an established and exhibited need for those housing types to serve their intended purposes. Thank you. Aaron R. Easter, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition?
My name is Yue Yin. I live at 755 Noble Court, West Lafayette. I actually have been here before him, but I pretty much I'll repeat what I said before, but since the current applicant may not be here last time, so I just repeat. And I believe that you or everyone here love our community and our school district, particularly for the West Lafayette residents. I wish that you can consider the following impact of Airbnb on our community and the district. First, the lack of permanent residence will lead to the decrease in the community engagement, stability, and cohesiveness. Imagine, if you host a block barbecue, will you invite the Airbnb guest next to your door? If a family has some emergency and need a hand, they will feel less comfortable knocking at the door of the Airbnb houses. There's a Chinese saying, a near neighbor is better than a distant relative. When the house next to you is a Airbnb business, basically you lose your near neighbor. Second, it will worsen the house shortage in the West Lafayette School District. As many people know, house supply in West Lafayette School District is very, very limited. The state funding per student ranked the third lowest in Indiana in West Lafayette. Every number of students is critical for us to maintain the reasonable compensation for our teachers and the educational programs. We lost more than 40 students last year and partially because of the limited housing supply. And when more houses are converted to Airbnb, we will lose more students, as apparently no Airbnb guests will send their kids to our schools. I believe that you don't want to see that our schools are struggling financially. Actually, at the last last meeting I attended, one of the speakers said he found it's even more difficult to find a house in West Lafayette than find a job, faculty job at Purdue. And third, there will be a domino effect. If one Airbnb case is passed, more may be coming. The new applicants will ask, why don't you approve my request, given that you have approved others? Just like a cavity, once it starts without intervention, it will further develop and enrolls the neighborhood and the district. And fourth, as far as I know, the zoning committee has rejected other Airbnb requests in West Lafayette School District. I believe it will be only fair to reject any other ones from now on. Fifth, from the investor's perspective, probably it will make more financial sense to deal with your empty house. For example, you can sell it at a good price. As you know, we just last year passed the referendum in our school district. That means people in our district have to pay a higher tax. And financially, it doesn't make that much sense to run your house as an Airbnb. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition, can you please sign in, please?
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. My name is Dave Kusick, and I reside at 807 Elmwood Drive, West Lafayette. And I would like to read this petition in opposition to allowing a transient guest house at 2215 Carlisle Road, West Lafayette, Indiana. We have 159 signatures on this petition. We, the undersigned, are opposed to allowing a transient guest house at 2215 Carlisle Road in West Lafayette. We find the proposed special exception to deviate from the existing zoning rules and allowing a transient guest house at this location in West Lafayette materially and permanently injure the other properties and uses in the same zoning district and vicinity, along with subverting the R1 purposes of the Unified Zoning Ordinance. R1's intent is long-term, single-family dwellings, not house, hotel, motels, mini motels. Our request is to deny this special exception is supported by the community's expressed concerns regarding safety, traffic, noise, lighting, the current and future uses of R1 zone properties in the neighborhood. To prevent the erosion of our neighborhoods and to maintain their integrity as long-term housing for individuals and family, voting against this special exception is reasonable and justified, and we urge you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to speak in opposition?
My name is Jennifer Page. I live at 144 Creighton Road in West Lafayette. Citizens are rightly concerned about the impact on our everyday quality of life, the cost of housing, declining school enrollment, and safety in our neighborhoods. Regarding BZA 2133, I am respectfully requesting a no vote from this board. As you know, 2215 Carlisle Road is in an area zoned R1, meaning it was developed and zoned specifically for single-family low-density housing, as laid out in our zoning ordinance. Families defined as one or more persons related by blood, marriage, or adoption, and not more than two unrelated persons in a single housekeeping unit. I believe the decision to modify zoning rules for one homeowner because it's profitable or convenient is an unfair precedent. Changing the rules is not only unjustified but unfair to other homeowners. Most West Lafayette residents are committed to this community. Some of us grew up here and have been here for many, many years. We're not transients. We live and we work, we volunteer, and we pay taxes to the city, the county, the state, and the federal government. In this case, we pay higher property taxes to support our school system, and I feel our rights should take priority over a business venture that's really not approved to operate in a neighborhood. After attending these meetings in September and October, I quickly realized that APC staff is very limited when evaluating the appropriateness and desirability of transient rentals in our neighborhoods. Additionally, they're not required to evaluate the potential consequences of their recommendations. In other words, the tests in place, which I understand that they are following a format prescribed for them, do not account for outcomes, and they don't address enforcement. Specifically in test number 3, which says granting the special exception will not subvert the general purposes served by the ordinance, as there would be no anticipated compromise to the health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the community. That is impossible to evaluate in every scenario. Further, I don't think we can ensure this would be true when a new group of people are moving in and out every few days or weeks. The APC recommendation also does not address enforcement, and practically speaking, enforcement is left entirely up to the neighbors, which is a burden I don't feel that we should bear. Enforcement comes at a significant cost in time, energy, and mental and emotional well-being of our residents. Again, we purchased our homes with the protection that R1 zoning provides, and that was built into the cost of our homes and the value going forward of our homes. So I don't feel that should be stripped from us for the profit and convenience of any single property homeowner. I'm very grateful that this mechanism is in place to keep the number of transient rentals from growing in our neighborhoods. They're not welcome, and I urge you to please vote no on this petition for the transient rental at 2215 Carlisle Road. This exception would have a material and lasting negative impact on the other property owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Allen Smith. I reside at 148 Creighton Road in West Lafayette, Indiana. Thank you for permitting me to come before you to address the issue of the petition requesting special exception to allow transient guest housing at 2215 Carlisle Road. In opposition to this petition and in consideration and support of my friend and neighbor Jennifer Page's argument regarding the third of the four tests under which the staff makes its recommendations, I would like to address, the language, spirit, and intent of the statement as it pertains to community. To reiterate, granting the special exemption will not, in capitals, subvert the general purposes served by the ordinance, as there would be no anticipated compromise to the health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the community. As per the Merriam-Webster dictionary, community is defined as, I quote, a unified body of individuals who are, firstly, people with common interests living in a particular area. Transients neither live in a particular area for a particular time nor have common interests beyond a desire to enjoy the benefits of a healthy, safe community to which they have not and do not contribute. 2, a group of people with a common characteristic or interest living together within a larger society. Transients neither share a common characteristic insomuch as they come from various, sundry, and largely unknown geographic, socioeconomic, and political backgrounds and disparate value systems that do not necessarily reflect those of the community, nor live within a larger society, insomuch as living implies long-term financial and sociocultural commitment and contribution to a particular area at a particular collective. 3, a body of persons or nations having a common history or a common social, economic, and political interests. Transients do not share a common history or common social interests. A rolling stone gathers no moss. Transients do not have common economic interests. They neither pay taxes nor invest in local businesses. Transients do not have a common political interest. They are not residents and therefore do not have any voting privileges. 4th and final, a group linked by a common policy. Transients are not only are not linked by common policy, they are not bound by it. They operate only within the policies of the rental agreement, which in and of itself is open to wide interpretation and casual enforcement, and only at the time in which it is entered into. Enforcing community policy designed and intended to serve, protect, and reflect the best interests of the residential community, unfairly and unjustly falls to the responsibility of that community. Thus, transients are, by definition, not members of a community. As such, quote, granting a special exception will absolutely, undeniably, and irrevocably subvert the general purposes served by the ordinance, and there would be a compromise of the health, safety, convenience of the general welfare of the community, a community of which transients are neither a part nor in which they have a vested interest. While transients benefit from the health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the community, they do not contribute to it socially, economically, or politically. Transient and transient housing do not help grow a community, it stunts its growth. Transient and transient housing erodes the very fiber which community is built, maintained, and defied. Any action or element that does not contribute to the health of an organism endangers it. Therefore, until such time as the language and the intent behind the language can be revisited and revised, not only should exceptions to R1 zoning not be granted, the petitions requesting them should not even be entertained. Specifically, a transient rental housing at 2215 Carlisle Road will have a material and lasting negative impact on both other property owners in the neighborhood and the West Lafayette community. As such, I ask you to please vote no. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Speaking in opposition.
My name is Kate Mast. I live at 817 Elmwood Drive. I apologize, I had to step out and grab my son real quick a minute ago. But I wanted to speak in opposition to the additional transient guest houses in West Lafayette. We live next to quite a few in our block, and it is just a blight on the community. We used to have a very strong neighborhood with lots of neighbors, and as each one of these turns over, it's fewer and fewer people to interact with us and interact with our family. The houses are vacant for quite a bit of time, and then when there are people there, we don't know who they are, we don't interact with them, we don't really get any kind of sense of community. So I'm asking you to please vote no against that and help preserve the sense of community and the sense of neighborhood that we have there. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could sign in, please. Speaking in opposition. Anyone else wanting to speak in opposition? If not, you can rebut.
Well, yeah, it's kind of overwhelming, all the opposition, but I want to answer a few questions, a few things that were raised here. Number one, the neighbors across the street and on one side are rentals. So if this is R1 and there are multiple people living there, more than 6 at some of them, so it is not a single family neighborhood. There are a lot of rentals there, and as I said, the house is small for a family. So that's number one. Number two, for people that said that there were prior houses that were not approved, I think you are here to listen to the petition and to the opposition and decide for your own for each case, because if that was a general yes or no, then we wouldn't need to speak in front of you and you would sign something without considering the specifics of each case. I am a West Lafayette resident of 35 years. My other daughter, who is married, lives in West Lafayette. They just bought a house a year ago in West Lafayette. So I know the needs and I know the community in West Lafayette very well. And trust me that if we had an option, I probably would not be doing that because I work still full-time and it will fall on me to be taking care of the house and making sure that everything is going okay. We are going to screen the residents very carefully. As I said, that is the only asset my daughter has. The furniture in there is the only furniture that she has. So it is in her interest that everything will be kept nice and the neighbors will be satisfied and nobody will be affected negatively from this move that we're trying to do. Our only goal is for her to be able to pay her mortgage here while she's living in New York, as she doesn't know what her future will be like right now. Selling the house sounds amazing and great, but when you're a single woman, if you sell it and part of what you sold it goes to the taxes, she will never be able to be a homeowner ever again, because she was able to purchase this house with help from my in-laws, and that gave her a permanent placement where she grew up, and if hopefully one day she has a family where she wants to raise her family. So that's why selling it is not an option for us right now. And renting is not an option because of, I think, with the Airbnb, we will have more control of how the property is being treated and how to maintain it in a presentable way all the time. And with rental, she wouldn't have that because once rentals are in, they're in for a year. And also, she needs a place to stay when she comes to visit. And as parents, it's very important to us that she will be able to come to visit. So I hear all the opposition, I understand it. As I said, I am also a West Side resident. She's still going to pay the taxes, so that is not going to affect anything. She's going to contribute financially what she needs to the community. And I just think you guys have to look at things case by case and not as a global thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments from the board? Go ahead.
I have a question for the petitioner. Who is going to be managing this property? So at Saturday at 2 a.m., you're the one that's going to be responding.
I live 3 minutes away from the property.
Have you ever managed property before?
No, I'm not a business person. My whole goal is to help my daughter.
You had mentioned in your statement that one of the things you guys are going to be doing is screening and reviewing the people. Will you be doing that? Will your daughter be doing that?
It is going to be between the both of us, and then there is Airbnb, I understand, insurance also that helps. And again, I mean, this is for now. If it gets approved, I might have to have somebody manage it. But for right now, between me and two of my friends, we're going to clean the property between the residents, and I'm going to manage it.
How often will the owner, your daughter, actually be on site per year?
She just moved 4 months ago, so I have no idea. She just, in 2 weeks, she will have done with her probation in the hospital, and then she'll start. So it depends on, she has a whole month of vacation a year, so once that kicks in, she's going to come and do what she needs to do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Gary?
I think that Robert answered the question that I had, who would be managing, and as we have in the past, on special situations where the owner's going to manage it, we have added an extra commitment that says that this special exception would cease if the ownership or the management changed. I suppose I can just make that motion and we'll discuss it and see if that's appropriate in this case, but I'd move to add a commitment that says the special exception would cease if ownership or management changed.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? And I guess I would like to hear from the petitioner as well on that commitment. I mean, if you could come up to the mic, please. I mean, essentially, this says that if management changes or if the house is sold, then the special exception ceases to exist. So you can't sell it, and it will not maintain.
That sounds perfectly reasonable to me.
I'm sorry, but just for clarification then, when I originally asked, you said you were going to be the manager.
Uh-huh.
And you also said that if it was passed, you might hire a manager. That
But
would
if
mean
that is the limitation,
you would remain manager, the responsible party, and the person that would respond.
I agree to that. If that is the thing that, will help, definitely I will do that. Parents do a lot of things for their kids.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add, Gary?
Other than that addresses the issue that it stays with the property and may be an Airbnb indefinitely. So it kind of puts a time frame on that, along with if it ceases as an Airbnb for more than a year, it would also expire. So,
correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Vote on that amendment.
Oh, let's go ahead and vote on that, the additional commitment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That commitment has been added to the petition. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we've got a ballot.
Sorry, excuse me. So, yeah, I wasn't sure, because I came in 7 minutes late, I wasn't sure whether anyone read the statement from West Lafayette School Board. Oh, if nobody did?
The
I
comment
still
period
do?
is closed,
Okay.
so at this point, they're voting now.
Probably not.
The Hard Luck Story is going to win.
There were 6 ballots cast, 4 in favor, 2 against.
So the special exception has been granted, and we'll hear our next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2138, Aaron Gravely and Shelby Gravely.
Right?
Petition,
Don't we need to hear 2137?
sorry about that. I think I got you next to me. I apologize. I move to hear and vote on BZA 2137, James and Joanne Lane. Petitioners requesting a variance to allow a 6-foot setback instead of the required 25-foot from the right-of-way of unimproved Lookout Drive for a new garage. The property zoned R1 is on the corner lot west of Concord Road and south of Veterans Memorial Parkway, more commonly known as 2130 East, 430 South, in WIA 15, Northwest 22-4.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please. Amanda?
Thank you. Amanda Esposito, APC staff. This property is just south of the Lafayette city limits. It is south of Veterans Memorial and west of Concord Road. It's an old platted subdivision, and you can see that it is on 430 South. The right-of-way to the west of this lot was a platted road as part of the subdivision, but it was never improved by the county highway. The surrounding properties in this area are all zoned R1, single families. Across Concord Road to the east is the Benjamin Crossing Plan Development. Currently on site is a single-family dwelling with an attached 2-car garage, constructed around 1966. According to County Highway, they have no plans to construct a public roadway within the limits of this right-of-way, labeled as Lookout Drive on the plat for this subdivision. And that is the reason for this variance. Whenever you have a building next to a road, the setback is a little bit larger than it would be if it were not a road on that side. So a standard setback, if the road were not here, would be 6 feet, which is what they are asking for. It's just the presence of that right-of-way for an unimproved road that is spurring this variance. In fact, the petitioner has indicated a desire to have this right-of-way vacated at some point, but wanted to move forward with the construction of the garage, so they are going through this process of a variance for 6 feet instead of the required 25 feet in the meantime. So staff found that strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in unusual or unnecessary hardship. applying that standard of a 25-foot setback from street right-of-way creates an unnecessary hardship because the UZO doesn't anticipate a lack of road improvements for platted roads in subdivisions. So we are recommending approval in this case, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner or his or her representative?
Hi, my name is Michael Lane. I'm here, I live in Lafayette, Indiana as well, at 2131 East 430 South. This is my parents' house. They are in Florida at the time, so they couldn't be here at the meeting, so I'm representing this. Just want to say that that road that goes down, I own that property that's behind there, behind that house and the other, so it just dead ends. I did talk to Stuart Klein probably a couple years ago, and I forget who else downstairs, said that they were willing to vacate it to us if we ever wanted to. So, like I said, we're just going through the variance at this time, just so when they get back in the spring, they could hopefully move forward and start getting the garage built.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the project?
My name is Rob Outhouse. I live at 2118 East 430 South, which is the house just to the west of this. We have no problems with, obviously, the variance that's being asked. We just want to make sure that the right-of-way is there for both of us, obviously even for Mike as well to get to his property behind. But we just wanted to, make sure that everything was going the way that it was supposed to, and that we will still have access to the right-of-way when needed. So we're good.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in opposition? Hearing none, anything from the board? We have a ballot.
Six ballots cast, 6 in favor, 0 against.
That variance has been approved, and we'll hear the next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2138, Aaron Gravely and Shelby Gravely. Petitioners and owners are requesting a variance to allow a 4-foot setback instead of the required 25 feet from the right-of-way of Lookout Drive for a recently constructed 6-foot-tall privacy fence. The property, zoned R1, is on the corner lot to the south of County Road East 600 North, more commonly known as 5932 Lookout Drive and Battleground, Tippecanoe 27, Northwest 24-4.
Second.
Motion is second, and we'll hear from staff, please. Amanda?
Thank you. This is another Lookout Drive here in the county. This is actually up in Battleground area. This is a neighborhood of R1, as you can see here. Aerial shows the property, a little bit more close up. This is before the fence went in. Site plan. And this is an aerial after the fence was installed. So the ordinance really only pertains to fences whenever they are over 42 inches tall and when they are along street frontages. So when they are that tall, they have to meet the minimum setback requirements. In this area, it is 25 feet. The variance being sought is in response to a zoning violation that was filed after receipt of a complaint from an area resident. If the variance is approved, the fence will be considered legally established and the violation case will be closed. If the variance request is denied, the petitioner owner would have to either reduce the height of the offending portion of the fence to a maximum of 42 inches, or relocate the offending portion of the fence to a location of the property where it would meet the minimum required 25-foot setback. I have a few other pictures here that we wanted to show of the fence. You can see here how close the fence is to the road here. Staff's findings, it won't be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare, but use and value of properties included in the area will be affected. A fence this tall kind of creates a compound effect in a neighborhood when it's this close to the road. It makes the property look more like a compound. The terms of the zoning ordinance are being applied to a situation that is common. A privacy fence could be erected in the rear yard, allowing for the enclosure of an area as large as 4,200 square feet in a manner that is compliant with the zoning ordinance. This would not result in unusual or unnecessary hardship, so staff was not able to find that hardship. We are recommending denial at this point. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner, his or her representative.
Hello, I'm Aaron Gravely at 5932 Lookout Drive. Just trying to keep it kind of quick because I know ignorance isn't a defense, but we kind of put a lot of thought into the fence, and apparently this is where we failed in some part. Just quick about us. I've worked for county for a couple years, for 1 year for the city of Lafayette as animal control. My wife Shelby's here. She's 5 years working at the sheriff's office as well. We unfortunately just have the burden of knowledge. Threats are part of our job. We live with it day to day, and I'm okay with it. It wasn't until we had our daughter back in December 22 that actually kind of hits home for me. I know I submitted a police report as well that there were threats against the Bisher family, maiden name, that basically an uncle's house had been shot at in retaliation of some kind for some other family member's ordeal. They hadn't been found. They had no suspects at the time. And this fence was kind of a long-term build for us. The price of lumber really held us back for a while. So we held off. Building this fence was a slow process as well. I mean, we had it marked with the utility lines probably 5 or 6 times just to make sure we weren't hitting anything. The only utility line that we actually came across that was going to actually be covered by the fence was our gas line to our house, and we centered it on our 10-foot gate, so just in case there was some need for a dig to repair a line somewhere, we had space for crews to get in and dig. Jokingly, I'm part of animal control. I had 2 dogs, both large dogs that little tie-outs in that backyard aren't enough, and it needs to be a 6-foot fence for the type of dog I own. I know she had similar pictures to what I shown. It doesn't block the right-of-way in the sense of any view. You don't actually see the fence until you've turned the corner into the neighborhood. There's no issue of the other kids that walk in the neighborhood. You're not going to miss them. We've cut brush down. We made sure it's open, straight shot. My father-in-law also here. He's been part of the Battleground Fire Department for 30-plus years. We thought that the distance farther back was enough to actually be covered and everything. And we actually kind of re-brought up an issue we didn't plan on with this weather we're currently having. If I go back to the APC's photo of our overhead, for sake of our kid and having enough backyard space, pretty much from the shed all the way back south to the end of our fence currently is flooded in enough water that it's not usable. I mean, I can always grade it and try to make it better, but we extended that extra spot out to cover my daughter's window, which is that south window that you see covered by the fence in the angled portion. And in the future, it gives us space to put up some kind of playground if we wanted something else for her. I know they said it would be a large enough backyard without it, but we just incorporated that space to miss utility lines, cover our daughter's window with enough safety. I mean, we have cameras in the security system, but again, that burden of knowledge we all see on the news that somebody goes to shoot up a random house that they're mad at and they hit the kid in the crib. The fence with the height it's at in the picture, sorry, gotta get back to it, out of her window, you can actually see if somebody wanted to come shoot at a house, I feel like it would provide sufficient protection for her as well. And after getting the report from the APC, worried about property value for fences in a front yard section 1, our largest part of our yard is side yard, so we tried to incorporate what we could. And driving around the surrounding area, there's other fences that the same proportion side of the house on a corner, they have a fence that's sticking out, sucking in some of the side yard into a backyard fence. So, I mean, I didn't have time because by the time they submitted the staff report, I couldn't submit any further. I have pictures of it today if you guys would look at them. I just brought it just in case more than anything. Other than that, I think that covers about everything. And I'll let you guys continue.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition?
David Bisher. I live at 5903 Bittersweet Drive, West Lafayette, Indiana, which is the addition to the west of this, their property. I'd just like to say I'm in favor of this. We did a lot of studying on this. What we did not anticipate is a setback of 25 feet in the front yard, and considering this is the side yard and that fence only incorporates one side, only incorporates part of that side of the yard, we didn't anticipate that being a 25-foot setback on that side of the property. It's 16 feet from the road to the edge of the fence. So we're not even asking for the 6 feet. We're just asking for that to be amended so that fence can stay where it's at. The whole purpose of this was after my brother's house was shot up, that brought up safety concerns for my granddaughter. That's the only reason that that fence was brought out, and the weird angle of it, if somebody wants to complain of it, that is so that will miss water, sewage, and the gas line. So that was all incorporated into the plan of the fence. If you notice, I like this picture here, though. If you notice the neighbor's fence, even though it is below the 42 inches, that is just the view from their house to the neighbor's fence. That house has been vacant for over 12 years. I take that back. Yes, it has been vacant. It has not been abandoned, but it has been vacant. There was a tree laying on the house when my daughter and my son-in-law bought their property. It did not affect their property value at all. The neighbor on the opposite side of this property here put up a fence prior to selling their house. Their house was on the market very short amount of time. So I don't feel that this really affects the property values, and I don't really understand how that can be considered a front yard when none of this fence blocks any view of the front of the house. That's all I have.
Thank you. Speaking in favor?
Angela Bisher. I live at 5903 Bittersweet Drive, West Lafayette, Indiana. We live in the addition next to it. I find it interesting. I was told that the person who filed the complaint doesn't even live in this neighborhood, and that there's a neighborhood right across the road, well, down the street just a little bit, that has very poorly maintained homes. And the addition that the person that complained lives in, all those houses abut against that. I would think that'd be a bigger issue. I work for the school corporation at present. Battleground schools are highly sought after. Homes in this area do not stay on the market very long at all. The house across the street from us sold in one day. My daughter's other house on 225, they sold overpriced within like 5 days. I don't think that the fence is the issue as far as a property value goes. Most people prefer fences. I think it'll look terrible if we just have to saw it off, frankly. But that's what it may have come down to. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Comments, questions from the board? Hearing none, we've got a ballot.
6 ballots cast, 6 in favor, 0 against.
Variance has been granted, and we'll hear our last case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2140, Sean and Victoria Quigley, petitioners and owners represented by Chris Shellman of Gutwein Law are requesting a variance to allow a 15-foot setback instead of the required 25-foot from the front lot line along Rockland Drive to add a new garage to the existing dwelling. The R1 zone property is located at 115 Rockland Drive in West Lafayette, Wabash 18, Northeast 23-4.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, and hear from staff, please. Ryan?
All right. Okay, going back to West Lafayette, this is off Salisbury, just kind of north of the old school site. Rockland Drive backs up onto the Happy Hollow Park vicinity. And so there's a lot of old lots that were platted a long time ago. And this is one of them. Not too many have this pie-shaped, but this is one of them. So the site is zoned R1. I believe it does match the setbacks just barely for the site. The Rockland Drive itself was never platted as part of the subdivision, so its right-of-way is variable, which causes a problem. As you can imagine, it fluctuates from 26 feet to 34 feet. I mean, you could tell from the tax map there. It's quite a kind of an interesting little dead end. Obviously, it is a dead end street. It's narrow, no sidewalks. The house itself, according to records, was constructed in 1952, so it predates the 65 ordinance. It would have abided by city ordinance at the time, whatever that was. But the situation is highly unusual for this proposal. I believe here's our site plan, nice and clear there. So you can see the inner pie shape is the standard setbacks, and it really is only encroaching into this one area. And it's staff's opinion, given the very unusual nature of this little neighborhood and its history, there's not a lot of situations like this that are very common. And so this does rise to the level of a hardship in staff's opinion. Our tests reflect that. And so we are recommending approval of the variance. We happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner, his or her representative.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. President and Board. Chris Shellman of Gutwein Law, 250 Main Street, here on behalf of Sean and Victoria Quigley. The petitioners would like to move into this house, have a modest proposed addition to make it just a wee bit bigger to suit their needs, but really want to make West Lafayette their home. We appreciate the staff's support, agree with it. Be happy to answer any additional questions the board may have. Thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Helps if I turn my mic on, too. And anyone in favor? Anyone in opposition? Questions from the board?
Staff, is in the picture that we see, is the violation just the upper left?
Yeah, that's right. I believe that reduces the setback to 15, I think, in the staff report. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, the
Thank you.
northwest corner.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we've got a ballot.
6 ballots cast, 6 in favor, 0 against.
That variance is granted. Administrative matters. No administrative matters. Unless any member has an objection, the chair will order the findings of each member casting a vote for the majority decision of the board to be the collective findings of the board in support of the decision of the board. Hearing none, it is so ordered, and we'll take the last motion, please.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.